Netflix just ended easily one of its most talked about shows on the platform. That is 13 Reasons Why. We're talking about the series finale, season 4. I'm going to let you all know what I thought about the last episode, the season as a whole, and just my overall thoughts about the series. We're going to talk about that and much more. In this final season, Liberty High School seniors class is preparing for graduation, but of course, before they actually say goodbye to each other in their school, they will have to keep a dangerous secret buried, as well as face heartbreaking choices that may impact their futures forever. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot here again with a new Netflix TV review for the fourth and final season of 13 Reasons Why. Very excited to let you all know what I thought about this season and what I think about the series as a whole. Before we dive into this discussion, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on my social media accounts. If you're new to this channel, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And let's just have some discussions in the comments, guys. Let me know your pros, your cons. What did you think about the season finale? Think about the fourth season as a whole. What do you think about this series? Who are some of your favorite characters? Let's just have some discussions. There's no right or wrong answers. This is a safe space. Let's just have some great conversations in the comments below. So, as I do with all my Netflix reviews, if you've been following me for a while, the first half, no spoilers, just my initial thoughts, pros and cons, things of that nature. And then the second half is more as an open discussion, kind of more dive into the spoilers, more particularly what I didn't like, what I did like, things of that nature. So that's kind of the format if this is your first time watching one of my Netflix reviews for a TV show. So jumping into this season 4. Just quick overview of this season, this show, I should say, as a series as a whole. I didn't really review that many TV shows when I started my YouTube channel, so I don't have reviews for season 1 and 2. So just quick thoughts. I love season 1. I thought it was very risky. I thought that the storytelling was really well done. It had a source material that it really stuck by. I haven't read the book, but I heard that those that have read the book, that it adapted it really well, and I think that the show was really well done. I know it's a lot of controversy with the first season. It obviously tackles things that are very a triggering type of very sensitive subject matter with suicide and bullying and things of that nature. So I really applaud the first season. Season 2 was okay. One of the biggest things I took away from season 2 was Tyler's storyline and, obviously mass shooting and how can you reform, change someone from where they were to where they are now. So I applaud that. The Bryce trial and all that stuff, and some of that stuff got a little convoluted for me for the season 2, but I thought that season 2 was fine. I thought that it was fine enough to justify for them to have a season 2. Now, I did review season 3 on this very channel last August. You can check out that video. I'll leave it in the description below. Straight up, I did not like season 3. There were many, many reasons why, but 13 reasons why, maybe even to say the least. But the Bryce storyline just didn't work for me personally. I get what they were going for in regards to there's always another side to the story, or there's always more to the person than what you think. It didn't work for me at all. Trying to humanize Bryce just fell flat for me. And then Monty's storyline. And season 3 was not for me. You can watch my review and see that. But going into this fourth season, what I always like to do with shows like this, and what I do in general, I leave my personal expectations and, all that stuff at the front door, and I go into things with an open idea, with an open mind, not any judgment. Let's just see what they have to say with this fourth season. So that's where I'm going to start this review, starting off with the positives. Our main man, Clay Jensen, I think that this show, for the most part, it started a little rocky, but I think that they ended his arc pretty well. We're seeing Clay in this season, again, no spoilers, but he's going through a lot. In this season, if the first season tackled suicide and bullying, fourth season with, reforming someone and the whole idea of, gun violence, season 3, which I don't like, but even that season trying to say something. This season really kind of tackles on mental health and anxiety and what lies can do to a person, hallucinations and going out of character and doing things that they never do before. So I think that what they did with Clay started off a little rocky, but by the end of the season, I kind of really enjoyed what they did with that character, the main character, him doing the narration over this season, him in the conversation with his therapist, and obviously his relationships with his friends and Justin and Tony and all that stuff. So I really applaud what the show did with Clay from where we started in season 1 to where we ended in season 4. I thought that his arc was really well done. I will applaud the show this season, even though I wasn't a fan of a lot of this stuff, and we'll talk about that in my cons. But what I would applaud the creators for doing is they did go off the rails, and they just went full blown. We're going to get kooky. We're going to get wild with this season. I mean, one of the things, as you all know, I'm a big horror fan. There were a couple episodes, in particularly episode 3 and 4, which was the Valentine's Day episode and then the camping episode. There was a tinge of horror, right? They tried to throw in some horrific elements. There's, without spoilers, there's a particular set of people that are attacking and threatening Clay, and I really kind of like where they were kind of going with that angle. I wish they would have focused on that more. Unfortunately, after the 4th episode, that's kind of like the last of that particular storyline, but I like that the show did try to take, I don't want to say risk, because I don't think there was a lot of risk taken in the show, to be honest with you guys, this season. But I like that the show was like, we're gonna switch things up a little bit. We're gonna change the style. We're gonna give you a little bit more different tones, different theme in this season. So I kind of applaud the creative nature that they took in some cases. Going back to my positives in regards to Clay had a good arc, in my opinion. I thought Jessica and Justin, their storyline had a pretty good wrapping and ending to, everything that they went through. Same goes with, I think of Tyler's character, Alex's character, Zach. I don't know what they were trying to do with Zach this season, but from where he started to where he ended was drastically different. But I applaud, again, kind of they're trying to do something different with these characters and not just give you stereotypical endings with some of these characters. So again, Clay Jensen, some of the other main characters, I like their arcs. I like the switch in tone and trying to add some horrific kind of mysterious elements to this show. It's always been a mysterious show, a mystery show in a sense, but this particular season really does shine light on, who knows what they did in season 3 and what can those consequences have and things of that nature. So I applaud kind of the first half of the show. Like episodes 1 through 4 really were the best parts of this season for me. The second half we'll get into here in a little bit, but I really do like what they were trying to do in the first 4 episodes. Non-spoiler cons for this season, just saying it up front, I enjoyed some of the elements in the first 4 episodes, but when you look at the whole package of season 4, the 10 episodes, 10 hours, almost 10 and a half hours, or maybe almost 11, because the last episode 10, which was I think it was called Graduation, was an hour and a half, which was crazy to me. I mean, yes, it's the final episode, blah, blah, blah. It was a lot of wasted space in the episode, nevertheless. But either way, as a package, this wasn't as bad as season 4, but or season 3, I should say, but it's not that far behind. If I were to rank my personal rankings for the show, it's easily season 1, then I would say season 2, then I would say season 4, then season 3 for me. I think season 3 is probably the worst just because of what they did with Bryce and Monty and all that and all that storyline. But my biggest issue with the show, and it really kind of pawns off of season 3, I find it hard to root for our characters: Clay, Zach, Alex, Jessica, Justin, Tony, Tyler, Charlie, all of our characters, all of our main cast. I find it so hard to root for them because it's just like, I can't believe that they want, at least for me, I can't root for these characters after what they did in season 3. We're supposed to hope that everything works out because for me, it's like the show wants you to be okay with them. Again, think of the genesis of the show. The first season is focusing on speaking up to those that are doing wrong to people, right? And calling them out, right? But as the show continues to go on, Clay and all his friends, they have become the judge, the jury, and the executor, right? They are the ones that can choose, you're good, you're bad, your life's worth saving, your wife, your life's not worth saving. Things like that. I just felt it's so hard to feel bad for these characters because of the decision they made in season 3. It's just like, you guys, the whole point of the show is to speak up against violence, to speak up against those that are being mean and doing bad things. By the end of season 3, again, without spoiling anything for those that haven't seen season 3, but I assume if you're watching this review, you've at least seen the third season. The fact that Alex and Jessica got away with murder, and the fact that everyone was just like, we're going to protect you guys because you deserve it. And Bryce and Monty, they don't deserve a life. And again, not condoning their actions, what Bryce did, I wasn't a fan of that actor, but at least what they were trying to do with that show and showing you that side, that type of person that we all kind of maybe have seen or know of, and also what Monty did. But the fact that the crew was able to say your life doesn't matter because of what your past actions have done, but then it's just like, well, you guys are hypocrites because you guys you're protecting someone that killed someone, and you blame someone for their murder, and then you blaming them for the murder was the reason why they died. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me. So it's really hard to watch this show, to root for these characters, is what I'm trying to get at. And I think another thing that made it really difficult for me to really like this season was, even if I can put my differences aside for the characteristics and the decisions the characters make, the story is just not there. I mean, this show always writes itself in a corner. I feel like there's really, I don't want to get too much into it in this non-spoiler portion, but I think of Zach's storyline in this season. I think of Tony's storyline, like his whole ISIS thing and his family being sent off, and they address it within like 2 minutes of the show and never bring it up again. There's new characters, Diego, Estella, and, Winston. Literally, all three of those characters are completely pointless, because when you have seen this season, you'll know what I'm talking about. By the time they get their resolution, it's just like you guys have spent this whole season trying to figure out what happened to Monty and Bryce, and then once we kind of get the solution, it's just like, okay. Wasn't a fan of that, and that's where I'm trying to get at with my cons in this portion, this non-spoiler part of this video. The show doesn't know what it's trying to say in this season. At least I can say, again, with season 1, I can see the message. Season 2, not the most well-executed season, but I can see what they were going for. Season 3 fell flat for me, but even and the same goes with this season. It's just like, what are you trying to say? Again, you're talking about these things, mental health, PTSD, what lies can do to a person, all that stuff, but what's the message in this particular season? I don't know what I'm walking away from in this particular season. What were the 10 episodes worth? What were you trying to say in this season? That's my biggest thing with this season. It was almost pointless, to be honest with you. It was just a farewell to the characters we knew from season 1, but then as season 2 and 3, I don't know who those characters are anymore. Like, they're liars. Some of them are murderers. Some of them are hiding or accessory to murder. It's just like, I don't know who these characters are anymore. So it's just like, for me, it kind of all fell flat. Again, I can applaud the creativity in the show, and the look and feel. Obviously, it's a well-produced show. The acting's okay. I mean, at this point, I feel like they had to end the show because these actors, they look like the adults in the show, and that's always the thing with me with TV shows and high school, portraying high school students. I mean, Tony and Jessica and Justin and even Bryce, they look like they are adults in real life. So it makes sense that they're in it now, because the kids are the adults now. They look like it. But either way, overall thoughts before I get into the actual spoilers. This show is better, at least it's better than season 3, but that's not saying a lot. But I do like what they were trying to do in the first 4 episodes. The conclusion, and I'll talk about it more in the spoiler, did not work for me at all. The surprises and the whodunit and the mystery aspect fell flat for me personally. But I think at the end of the day, it's just, I don't know who these characters are. I don't root for these characters from the decision they made in season 3, so it just made it really hard to just kind of really feel satisfied in this season. So I will say, if you've invested the last 3 years in watching this show, and if you want somewhat of a redemption for what I look as a really terrible season of the show in season 3, you might find that in season 4, but don't get too excited. That's just my opinion, but give it a watch if you invested time. Now, if you haven't seen this show, I don't think you should watch it. I'll just say that out flat. So now let's just dive into a little bit. This is more of I'm going to be all over the place, so bear with me. This is more of a discussion. Get into my criticisms with this season. So as I had mentioned, the season, well, first and foremost, the season kicks off with a whole, and they actually kept this from the trailer with the whole, like, who dies, right? Because the first episode, you see that they're at a funeral, and it says 6 months earlier, so I'm like, okay, here we go again. I mean, how many times are we going to go to this well in regards to who killed who, how did this person die? It's like, okay, I'll sit down and see who dies. I'm thinking in my mind, okay, could it be Clay? Because obviously he's the biggest character. He's the lead character of the show. I'm like, probably not. Can it be maybe a parent? Can it be a misdirection? Can it be a character we don't even know or we might meet in this season? Estella, Diego, Winston. I'm thinking all that, but obviously we find out the character's Justin. Now, the Justin character really kind of highlights my issues with this show. This show has a really big responsibility to its audience, right? Because again, it's tackling these really sensitive subject matters, and it can be really hard to balancing out. Let's try to be as faithful and as honest as possible about suicide, rape victims, gun violence, police brutality in this season, PTSD, anxiety. We got to be true and honest. But at the same time, we have to be entertaining. We have to have the drama. So I felt like in this season, the show had the responsibility to be morally good and have something to say was really, really tested. I think of the surprise element of everyone. I think of, everyone's gay in this season, which I have no problem with, but I feel like the show just constantly has to be like, oh, we're surprised they're gay. It's just like, come on, guys, you've done this how many times this season? I mean, Alex with him and Winston, him and, Charlie, him and all the different, him kissing Zach and the dean being gay. I thought that storyline got really played out again. I applaud the diversity and having people being represented on the screen, but I feel like that storyline got played out really well, really quickly. But when I'm going back to Justin I feel like the show always kind of takes those moral responsibilities and puts its own spin to it. Like, again, with Justin having HIV and, having AIDS, which I kind of saw that coming. I don't know if you guys noticed on his neck, like episode 4 or 5, he was showing signs that he went back to his rehab or relapse, but after his mom died, you saw it on his neck. I don't know if I was the only one that saw that. Clearly the characters didn't notice that he had scars and things all over his face, but it's fine for them to say that was why he died. They could have just simply, for me, they could have just said, the drugs, the needles, reusing needles, he got HIV. But then the show had to say, well, he also got HIV because he was having sex with other men. It's just like the show does things like that. It's just like, really, did you have to put that in there? What are you trying to say there? Because, again, it tries to show that it's fine, which it is 100% fine to be yourself and to be, you're experimenting with life. They're in high school. I think of Alex and his whole bisexual, Charlie and all that stuff. But then it's like, why would you say that Justin died because of, having sex with other men? It's just like, it's so confusing. And then my biggest thing with this season in regards to just confusion was, where are the consequences, right? Like, why, again, it's so baffling to me that we're rooting for these characters that are essentially getting away with murder, but also it's just like, okay, you have Zach's character who, by the way, the whole, like, these kids are they can't be broken. They can't. There's no harm that can be done to them. Zach tears his leg was destroyed by Bryce last season. He's okay now, and obviously Alex is okay now after shooting himself in the head. And the whole recovery process to me in the show is so unbelievable. But I thought that this show would have a cliffhanger. Like, I think of the episode where Zach and we see 2-second Clay Jensen loses his virginity to the sheriff's daughter, who I thought that was going to be a pivotal storyline, which it wasn't. It was just there. She came and went. But it's the same way that Clay did in that scene, if you know what I mean. But we see that they have the car accident, and nothing becomes of that. They just have a car accident. They were drinking and driving, and they just talk about it in a scene, and it's over and done with. Same goes with Tony's whole storyline with his family. I think of there's so many examples in this season. Ani, who I know a lot of people wasn't a fan of last season, and I wasn't, because I thought they were trying to make another Hannah character in a sense, where she was just kind of there to comfort Clay and to be a love interest for Clay, and that's about it. But clearly the show writers did not know what to do with her, because she was only in half the show. They just had her leave to go take care of her mom. So it's just examples like this to me, where it's the show didn't know what to do with its characters. They didn't know what kind of story they wanted to tell. They were literally pulling things out of their ass. I literally think of that one episode where we spend the first 5 minutes in this super punk, cyberistic sci-fi. I don't know where that came from. Again, I applaud the horrific elements they try to throw into this season, but the whole camping episode and the idea that Clay, which, by the way, again, the show, I had to think of the show as a comedy, because I think that if I looked at it any differently, it would just piss me off, and I wouldn't have been able to watch this show if I didn't look at it as a comedy. I had to laugh at some of these moments because it's very laughable. The fact that Clay just escaped the mental facility and there was no consequences for that. The fact that, he destroyed the principal's car, broke the cameras, spray painted the school, no consequences for his actions whatsoever. I mean, they rewarded him by giving them, number one, they were able to have their prom. He was able to speak at his, again, the show just baffles me because it's just, I don't know what its messages is. They try to have this timely matter with the police force, with the whole police brutality and speaking up to the police, which again, it was very topical, right? Because of everything that's going on now. But it was just what are you trying to say? Obviously protecting your privacy, the school trying to protect the kids, but then the whole students versus the police and the teacher. I thought that storyline was so whack, was so underdeveloped, and just so unnecessary. I have a list of things that I'm looking at here. Again, I mentioned that there's a complete unnecessary amount of characters. Diego, where did he come from? Like all of a sudden, the football team are good guys. They're stand-up guys. But then just 2 seasons ago, they were sexually assaulting half the school, the female students, and the whole playhouse, but now they're good guys. And by the way, again, where did Diego come from? Why have we never? The love for Monty, all of a sudden, that everyone just suddenly loves Monty. He's just the best character. And Estella just comes out of nowhere. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did not know he had a sister. I thought it was just him and his dad. Correct me and let me know in the comments, did he mention that his parents were separated and Estella lived with the mom, and that's why we never saw her until this season? And going back to Estella, I thought the actress was fine. I never seen her before, but why? What is she? What was the purpose of Estella outside of becoming the girlfriend of Tyler? Like, what was she was supposed to be the one that was supposed to figure out what happened to her brother, and her and Winston and Diego, they're just like, we're gonna find out who did it. But then as the season went by, that storyline just went out the door. The football team harassing Clay went out the door. Again, this show is just it's just like juggling storylines. Just like, we're going to talk about this. Nah, I'm joking. Oh, we're going to bring this up. Oh, no, it's just like, this season to me was so pointless. This season to me proves to me why this show should have ended 2 seasons ago. Again, I can see why they want to do a season 2. Season 3 and 4 were completely pointless in my opinion. I think it's some of the worst writing of any show, in particularly these last 2 seasons. Again, the acting's fine, even though I found it very laughable whenever Clay was like being held, like when he went to the college dorm party and he was like, let me, like freaking out. Like, Clay freakouts are hilarious, but I think the acting is okay. But again, I don't know what the message is, guys. If you can let me know what you think about this season. Again, I can see, again, the anxiety, the pressure, but it's just like, hey, the anxiety, yes, someone would have a mental breakdown if they were hiding a murder, if they were the reason why someone was murdered in jail. Like, I can see why he's hallucinating, which again, those hallucinations were so jarring and so like ridiculous and so laughable. Everyone saw Ghost. It was so stupid to me. But either way, going back to, again, me trying to find the message of this season. Again, the reason why Clay is suffering from PTSD and why he's suffering from this anxiety and why he blanks out and blacks out, doesn't know what happens, is because he is responsible for people's deaths. It's like, sure, of course it's going to happen, but you guys created that story. It's like, I can't feel bad for him because he put this on himself. Mr. Save Everybody put that on himself. Same goes with every other character. Again, no excuse for what Bryce did to Hannah, did to Jessica, and all those different characters. But again, that was the genesis of the show, was speaking up for those that have been done wrong. But then the show becomes something else where these are criminals. They're the people that they were trying to defeat, right? They become, they even say in the show that Clay is becoming Bryce with the whole walking into the room with the girl and all the stuff that he was doing. And then again, I think about Zach's character. He just became just a drunk and cokehead and sleeping with prostitutes. It was like, where is this coming from, guys? Like, you guys are not developing these characters enough. Like, all of this stuff is just coming out of thin air. Like, and again, that's why I can go on and on again. I have so many different notes in my phone here that I can probably just wrap this up now I'm thinking about it. Again, they have the police episode with the gun violence. Again, I applaud the show for having the conversation, but I can't applaud them entirely because, okay, what do you have to say about it? What are you trying to say about school violence and gun violence? Like, what's the message? And then the decision that Tony makes to give the paper to the dean is just like, Tony, do you think that was going to do anything? Again, it's just like, it's just decisions that the show makes. And I think about these characters again. I think of Tony and his character arc, and his family became not an issue at all. I think of his relationship with Caleb, which becomes just kind of it's just there. Again, the whole reason, the whole thing of people. Again, when I'm saying this, is not a context in regards to everyone's gay in the show. It's just like that whole storyline, the surprise element is just that went out of the door many seasons ago, but the show thinks is being kind of like topical and being kind of, representing people. But again, I found it very laughable the way they handled it. I'm trying to look at some of these characters, just trying to make sure I cover all the characters I can think of. Again, I talked about Zach, talked about Tony, again, Monty and Bryce, the whole Ghost, they're coming and talking to people. I thought that story was just so flat. I won't even talk about the adults, because the adults in this show are terrible, terrible adults. That, like, the adults in this show are just so laughable. Like, their parenting skills are the worst. Clay's parents are just buffoons. I'm not criticizing the acting. I'm just talking about the characteristics of the adults in this show. Absolutely just laughable. Like, the principal is getting advice from Jessica about the school security. You're talking to a 17, 18-year-old about how they should protect the kids of the school. The adults in the show are just, like, again, like I said, are absolutely laughable. Alex's dad protecting him from murder. Just what are you trying to say there? That it's okay to lie, it's okay to get away with murder? Is that the message with these characters? That as long as they're good people, there's justification on why you should murder people, and that the police should cover it up. And the sheriff, who was like, we're going to figure out this case, but then he just lets them go free. The whole idea with Tyler and the gun heist and being a gun undercover cop. The show is laughable. Like, it is really laughable. Again, I appreciate the sentiment and try to have these conversations, but then when you put it in this package of just comedy and parody, I can't take the show seriously, guys. I'm trying to look for some more characters. I think I touched on most of these ridiculous storylines, but I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Those are my reasons why this show is crazy, and again, I applaud this show for what it tries to do, but it's just not well executed. Final thoughts of the episode, the finale. I thought that it wrapped up, really laughable in my opinion. It was just way too drawn out, the last episode and the graduation scene, and obviously it was sad. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say it wasn't sad to see Justin die, but it was just like, come on, that was just like some silly storyline to me, the way they handled that. But again, I think this show is all based on season 1, and if they would have left that season 1, it would have been well known in my opinion. But then, and I would even throw season 2 into the mix, but season 3 and 4 really, really, really puts a sour taste in my mouth about this show in regards to the responsibility that the show writers had and how they handled some of the subject matters very poorly. Again, this isn't a dig. If you're at home watching this review and just like, man, he's really poo-pooing on this show that I love, there's no, I'm not coming at you as a character, as a person. If you love this show, if you like the characters, the story, you really connect to them, that is incredible. That is what the show is trying to do, and I'm glad that it reached out to you. But for me, I couldn't relate to these characters at this point anymore because they became unrecognizable due to their decisions. I couldn't take this show seriously because of the show, how it handled the storylines and how they blew off certain things that could have been serious and could have been more interesting and more riveting and more interesting, but they didn't. They went a different route. So this was a bad season, and I'm glad it is over. I think that the first season had a lot to say, and the second season has something to say as well, but season 3 or 4 are just flat out bad. So that's my thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Again, this isn't a dig at you as a person. If you like the show and you like what it had to say, this is just my personal thoughts on the show, and it's just my opinion. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you check out my other content that I did over this weekend in regards to Shirley review, The Last Crimes of America on Netflix. Check out that review. And then this week we got a lot of things coming off this, from Greyhound on Apple TV Plus. We have Artemis Fowl and a couple other things dropping this week. So keep an eye out for those videos. I'm thinking about still doing my Hereditary watch along that I postponed. I'm gonna probably do that next Saturday, so definitely keep an eye out for that. But again, thank you for watching this review. We all know what's going on in this world right now, guys, so definitely stay safe out there, and it's a lot easier to show love than it is to show hate. So let's come together. Black Lives Matter, and let's keep this conversation going, because it's a very important conversation of what's going on in this world. And I think that things are going to be changing, guys, and I can't wait for that change, for injustices and things that are going on in this world. We got to make that change, so we're going to stick together and make this change happen. But thank you all for watching this review. Again, stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.